Tonight we'll explore 4 chilling stories, supposedly sent by real listeners from around the world. 3 of them come from different corners of the United States. The 4th, from the outskirts of Tokyo, Japan. Each story carries a disturbing element of the unknown, an elevator mirror that smiles back, a phone booth that answers when no one is there, a bus that never reaches its destination, and faceless figures that still haunt the woods of Connecticut. Were these just dreams, distortions, or something far more sinister? And remember, if you have a strange, unexplained experience of your own, visit GHORDAN.com and share it with us. Your story could be featured in a future episode. If you enjoy stories like these, leave a like and subscribe. We're still at the beginning of this journey, and your support means everything. Now, turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and ask yourself, would you believe them? Michael S., a lifelong resident of Monroe, Connecticut, shared a story that's been whispered in the corners of his town for decades, a local legend too strange to dismiss and too consistent to ignore. According to Michael, the sightings started sometime in the early 1960s and stretched into the late 1970s, surfacing in scattered reports and quiet conversations, always accompanied by a chill and a warning. If you see someone by the road and can't see their face, don't stop. The entities became known simply as the Faceless people. To see them from a distance, they looked human, in posture, in movement, in clothing. You might pass one standing by the edge of a wooded path, or glimpse one walking slowly along a quiet back road. Some wore coats, others seemed dressed for church or work. Nothing unusual, until you got closer, because that's when you'd realize something was wrong. Very wrong. Their heads had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a smooth stretch of pale skin, as if someone had pressed clay over where features should be. People described the sight as disorienting, a moment where the brain couldn't quite make sense of what it was seeing. Many witnesses described a sudden physical reaction: nausea, confusion, dizziness. A few even claimed they couldn't move, like something was holding them in place. Michael said the first time he heard the term was from his uncle, who worked as a delivery driver in the late 60s. He told the family he was driving through the northern outskirts of Monroe when he spotted someone on the roadside around 3 a.m. It was cold, snowy. The figure was wearing a coat and appeared to be waving. He slowed the truck. As the headlights illuminated the person's face, or where the face should have been, he slammed the brakes and skidded sideways across the road. He didn't stop, didn't help. He drove straight through the night and never spoke of it again until years later, and even then, only after a few drinks. He never doubted what he saw. He just refused to say the word ghost. Michael had his own encounter in 1974. He was 17, driving home alone after a weekend bonfire. It was late, nearly 2 a.m., and the roads were dead quiet. As he turned onto a wooded stretch near an abandoned farmhouse, his headlights landed on a figure standing just beyond the tree line. He thought it might be a lost hiker or someone from the party who'd wandered too far, so he slowed the car. The figure turned toward him. What he saw nearly made him lose control of the vehicle. No face, just the smooth, colorless void. And a sense deep in his chest that something about this being was watching him, even without eyes. He kept driving, never looked back. And from that night on, he never used that road again. Over the years, others reported similar sightings. Hikers frozen in fear after seeing one step out from behind a tree. Joggers claiming they lost time after passing one near the reservoir, and even a postal worker who left his route entirely after spotting one beside a mailbox. Some believe the faceless people are the result of government experiments, failed subjects released or lost into the wild. Others insist they're not human at all. Dimensional echoes, visitors, shadows of something we're not meant to see. Whatever the explanation, the stories haven't gone away. Even now, Monroe has grown, but those old roads still exist. The woods remain, and on especially quiet nights, some locals swear they've seen them again, standing still beneath streetlights, waiting at the edge of the trees. Never moving, never speaking. Michael ended his letter with a message. They're not a legend. They're a warning. If you ever see one, just keep driving. Don't blink, don't stop. And whatever you do, don't look back. Some mysteries fade with time. Others just wait for someone else to find them. This was Michael's story, passed on exactly as he remembers it. What would you do if one looked your way? This story was sent anonymously by someone who lives near Tokyo. They didn't leave a name, just a brief message, a location, and a memory they said they've tried for years to forget. Not far from the Hachioji Cemetery, a place already shrouded in superstition, there's an old phone booth. It stands alone on the edge of a quiet road, surrounded by trees, barely lit at night and often overlooked by passing cars. But those who live nearby know better than to ignore it. The story begins in the 1970s. A woman was murdered late one night, not far from the booth. Some say she had just made a call. Others claim she was still inside, the receiver dangling as the glass fogged up around her. The investigation was never conclusive. But soon after her death, strange reports began to circulate. People started saying the phone would ring on its own. Always after midnight, always 3 rings. If someone answered, they hear static at first, then a whisper, sometimes faint crying, and occasionally a voice repeating the last words they had just spoken. But the most disturbing part wasn't the voice, it was the silence that followed. According to our listener, if you linger too long inside the booth, especially after a call ends, you begin to feel as though you're no longer alone. The air turns dense, cold, and through the reflection in the glass, you start to see her, slowly forming in the background. Pale, wet, blood-stained. A woman watching from just outside. Some have reported seeing her face pressed gently against the glass, her mouth unmoving, her eyes hollow. She doesn't knock, she doesn't scream, she just waits, as if she knows the person inside will eventually have to turn around. The listener who sent us this story didn't believe the rumors either, at least not until they saw it for themselves. One night in college, they and a few friends had been out drinking. On the way back, one of them brought up the legend and dared the others to stop by the booth. Two refused. One walked halfway. Only our sender approached the glass. They didn't enter. They just stood outside, curious. And as they stared through the grimy window, the phone inside began to ring. They say their chest tightened instantly. Something deep inside told them not to answer, but they couldn't look away. That's when they saw the inside of the booth shift. Not physically, but visually, as if something behind the glass wasn't lining up with reality. The lighting changed. The shadows inside no longer matched those outside, and slowly, from the corner of the glass, a faint handprint appeared. Then a second. Then a face. They didn't scream, didn't run, just slowly stepped back. The ringing stopped. They turned and walked away, but they swear they heard a second ring, and then a third, just as they reached the end of the block. Now, decades later, the phone booth still stands. The cemetery has grown quieter, but the legend hasn't faded. People avoid that stretch of road at night. Taxi drivers won't stop there. And those who've used the phone after dark rarely speak about what they heard. The message ended with one final line. "I never touched the phone, but I think she knew I was there." I still wonder if that's enough. So, what do you believe? Is this just a story warped by time and fear? Or is there truly something or someone still waiting inside that booth, hoping someone picks up? As always, we share this story exactly as it was sent to us. Erica M. from Oregon shared a story that she says has haunted her for years. At the time, she was in her mid-20s, living in a small city outside Portland and working 2 part-time jobs just to get by. One night after a long shift and a misconnection, she decided to take a different bus route home, one she'd never used before. It was late, almost 11:30 p.m. The bus pulled up quietly, almost too quietly. Its digital display flickered slightly, showing a number she didn't recognize, but the driver nodded at her as she stepped on, so she assumed it was fine. From the moment she boarded, something felt off. There were maybe 7 or 8 other passengers. None of them looked up. No one shifted in their seats. No one even seemed to blink. They all sat perfectly still, facing forward, their eyes wide but strangely unfocused, like mannequins posed to simulate life. Erica took a seat near the middle and told herself they were just tired, like her. But the longer the ride went on, the harder it became to ignore the tension in the air. The usual sounds of a bus, the subtle creak of brakes, the low rumble of the engine, the occasional announcement, they were all absent. It was almost silent, save for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the faint rhythmic click of tires rolling over uneven pavement. Then she began to notice the route. The streets outside were unfamiliar. They passed few buildings, no traffic lights, no gas stations or fast food places. Just long, empty roads and stretches of dark trees. She leaned forward slightly to check the next stop display, but it was blank. Just a glowing blue rectangle flickering quietly above the windshield. Trying not to panic, Erica stood up and walked toward the front of the bus. The driver didn't look at her. He sat stiffly, staring straight ahead, hands tight on the wheel, eyes locked on the road. She hesitated, then said, "Excuse me, where does this bus go?" No response. "Hello?" Still nothing. Not even a glance. Then she heard it, shifting from behind. She turned around slowly, and every single passenger was now looking directly at her. Their heads had turned without a sound, their faces pale, their eyes wide and cold, as if they'd been pulled out of sleep with no memory of how they got there. One man's mouth moved, just barely, but no words came out. Only the low sound of breath escaping, or maybe imitating it. Erica rushed back to her seat, her heart pounding. She pressed the stop request button. Nothing. No sound. No light. She pulled the cord once, twice. Finally, a faint bell. The bus slowed. It stopped. And the doors opened to nowhere. There were no buildings, no signs, just a narrow road under a broken streetlight, surrounded by overgrown grass and distant woods. No sound, no wind. Even the sky above looked wrong, too black, too empty. She hesitated, but the eyes of the passengers were still on her, still unblinking, and something deep inside told her she had to get off. She stepped out into the silence, and the doors closed behind her. The engine hummed, the lights flickered inside the bus, and as it began to pull away, she turned to look back. The passengers, all of them, were now smiling, wide, frozen, unnatural. Their faces pressed close to the windows as the bus disappeared down the road and into the dark, leaving no sound in its wake. Erica stood there for what felt like hours before finding the courage to move. She said she eventually made it to a highway and was picked up by a patrol officer. But she never found that bus again. No record of the route, no record of that stop. And he ended her message with a line that still chills her. "If I hadn't gotten off, I don't think I'd be writing this right now." So, what do you think? Was it just a stress-induced hallucination? A bad dream amplified by fatigue and fear? Or did Erica step into something that night? A place, a route, a bus that never should have existed? We present this story exactly as it was sent to us. You decide. Daniel R. wrote to us from Michigan. He said he's been working as an electrician for over 15 years, and while he's encountered his fair share of strange things in older buildings, Nothing ever came close to what happened when he took a job at a 9-story office building in downtown Detroit. Daniel was newly hired. He was replacing an electrician who had recently passed away under mysterious circumstances, something he only learned much later. At the time, Daniel assumed the previous employee had simply retired or moved on to another job. He certainly didn't suspect anything unusual. The strange event started just a week into the new job. Daniel was sent down to install some electrical outlets in the building's basement. Nothing unusual about that task. He got into the elevator, pressed the basement button, and casually glanced at the reflective metal wall of the elevator interior. That's when he first saw it. His reflection was smiling back at him, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was twisted, malicious, almost mocking. Daniel blinked, startled, and the reflection immediately returned to normal, mirroring his confusion and unease. He convinced himself it was just exhaustion, shrugged it off, and waited impatiently for the elevator doors to open. But when they did, Daniel found himself stepping out, not into the basement, but into what appeared to be an abandoned, decayed version of the building's 9th floor. The walls had no windows. The air was thick and stale, and dim, flickering fluorescent lights cast unsettling shadows on cracked floors and peeling paint. Feeling uneasy, Daniel cautiously moved forward. His breath caught when he saw in the abandoned reception area a framed photograph on a dusty counter. A black-ribboned memorial image of one of the building's directors. His heart raced. He'd just seen that director earlier that same morning, alive and perfectly well. Panicked, Daniel rushed back into the elevator, pressing the button frantically. This time, the elevator took him safely back to the lobby. He said nothing, trying to convince himself it was just some kind of bizarre hallucination from exhaustion or stress. But the following morning, Daniel arrived at work to an atmosphere of mourning and disbelief. The director whose memorial he'd seen in that bizarre vision had died the night before, victim of a car accident that had occurred mere hours after Daniel had left work. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that what he had experienced was more than just a hallucination. It felt like a dark premonition. Just days later, it happened again. Daniel entered the elevator to reach the first floor, but instead of stopping there, the elevator once again descended into the mysterious floor 0. This time, it appeared as a deteriorated version of the 2nd floor. Stepping out cautiously, he immediately saw something deeply disturbing. The body of a man sprawled near a maintenance stairwell, unmoving, surrounded by abandoned tools. The air felt cold, oppressive. Daniel could barely breathe. He turned and rushed back into the elevator, slamming buttons until the doors finally closed. The next day, a coworker tragically died, electrocuted while fixing lighting on the 2nd floor, right near the maintenance stairwell where Daniel had seen the body, exactly as his chilling vision had shown. Daniel began piecing together the puzzle, and the truth slowly revealed itself. He had replaced the former electrician, the very man who had died on that 2nd floor under suspicious circumstances. His coworkers mentioned the elevator had been acting strangely for months. but none of them had seen anything like what Daniel experienced. In his message, Daniel confessed something he hadn't shared with anyone else. Even now, whenever he rides the elevator alone, he can't help but glance at his reflection, and each time, he swears. Just at the edge of his vision, he catches that twisted smile again. Fleeting, but undeniably present. Now Daniel wonders, is Floor Zero somehow a gateway to premonitions of tragedy, or is it merely the cruel imagination of a mind pushed to its limits? We present this story exactly as Daniel sent it to us. What do you think really happened to him on Floor Zero? Was it a premonition, a haunting, or perhaps something even darker? As always, you decide.
We've just heard 4 stories from people who claimed these things truly happened to them. 4 moments where reality fractured and something else slipped through. A man haunted by reflections that smiled back. A phone booth that still rings when no one's inside. A bus that never stopped where it was supposed to. And faces that never existed in a town that swore they were real. So tell me, would you believe them? If you have a story of your own, unexplained, eerie, or simply strange, you can send it to us through the link in the description. We're always listening. And if you enjoyed these tales, leave a like and subscribe. It helps more than you know, especially now, in the beginning of this channel's journey. Before you go, we recommend watching our last video, 5 chilling tales sent by viewers. Because some of the most disturbing stories are the ones that come directly from those who lived them. Until next time, keep your lights low and your mind open.